Hi, my name is Carolina Vasquez, and I'm currently a graduate student at Texas Women's University. I did a lesson plan on understanding inferences in order to develop academic language. In my lesson plan, the teacher would provide a paragraph to the students that had inferences and would give them the prior knowledge that they would need in order to make those inferences. Then the teacher would provide them another paragraph with inferences, but this time the teacher would ask the students questions in order to see if they're understanding how to make the inferences. Then the teacher would pair up the students, provide them another paragraph with inferences, and have them work together. And then lastly, they would take an assessment to see if they've understood or how they've progressed in their understanding of inferences. Now, I've read 3 articles from Claude Goldenberg, which both support and question my lesson plan. So I wanted to kind of go over that with y'all today. In his article, Unlocking the Research on English Learners, What We Know and Don't Yet Know About Effective Instruction, on page 5 specifically, there's an excerpt that actually supports what I did in my lesson plan, because it says to set clear goals and objectives and also provide appropriate and challenging material, as well as provide instruction and the routines that they'll need to do. By having those clear goals and setting them up throughout the lesson plan and letting them know, and also being repetitive in it, it'll also help the students understand what is needed and what is expected from them in order to reach these goals. Now, I feel that my lesson plan is clear in this. I also feel that in this article, there's another excerpt that supports my lesson plan, because it talks about sheltered instruction. And with sheltered instruction, you provide the students experiences or the content that they're familiar with. So, for example, the first paragraph that my teacher provides them, she or he is going to provide the students the prior and necessary background knowledge that they need in order to make inferences. So sheltered instruction actually touches bases on those things where, provide them with familiar content, make sure that they have that background knowledge so that they can go ahead and bridge the gap together. And then also, sheltered instruction does talk about, providing tables or Venn diagrams or something else in order to get them to make that correlation. Now, this I found on page 6 of that article. In another article by Claude Goldenberg, he does, which is the English Language Development, which is Guidelines for Instruction. On page 19, there's also another excerpt that supports my lesson plan. It talks about English language development. It states how instruction should essentially emphasize academic language as well as conversational language. And the reason why I selected a lesson plan on inferences is because I want to help the students understand how to make inferences, because that helps them incorporate it and develop their academic language, which is very important because it's very different from social versus academic language. And by doing this, not only will they be able to do inferences from the academic language aspect of it, but also the social language as well. There's also another excerpt on page, and that was actually on page 19. On page 20, the following page, it also goes into how English language development should incorporate reading, writing, and should extremely emphasize listening and speaking. Well, by the teacher going over the paragraphs with them and reading them out loud, the students will have to listen. Not only that, but they also have the opportunity to speak and say what they feel in reference to how they came about to making those inferences. Now, they also will write, because in the assessment they'll write down their answers, so they incorporate all of this together. So they do incorporate reading, speaking, thinking, that sort of thing. When it came to Claude Goldenberg's last article, Dual Language Learners, Effective Instruction in Early Childhood, on page 27, it does question my lesson plan. The reason being is because it states that we should involve the families in supporting the children's learning. And I didn't do this, or I didn't talk about it in my lesson plan, which is something that I should do in my future lesson plans, because essentially by involving the families, it does help the students build a stronger relationship and also build a better understanding of the content material. And then lastly and that was on page 27. Lastly, on page 28, it does talk about how we should incorporate the children's home language, which I also failed to do. So I feel like this questions my lesson plan because I didn't necessarily talk about how to incorporate the child's home language. So that's a really good point, and that's something that I should incorporate into my lesson plan, as seeing as how this would possibly build the bridge with their family support as well. If you have any questions in regards to my lesson or in regards to the articles, feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.